Well, hello. Welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Singer, songwriter, guitarist, bass guitarist Steve Diggle, the only current member of the original lineup of Manchester punk, post-punk band Buzzcocks. The band formed in 1976 by Pete Shelley and Howard Devoto, based on the duo's shared affinity for the Velvet Underground, in particular the song Sister Ray. Steve joined not long after with drummer John Mayer, cementing the classic original unit. Devoto left the band in 1977 and formed Magazine, one of the first so-called post-punk bands. Mr. Diggle has written several songs for the band, including one of my favorites, Airwaves Dream. Buzzcocks disbanded in 1981, but not before releasing a trio of highly regarded albums and singles. Steve was briefly a solo artist, then in 1982 formed a new band, Flag of Convenience. F.O.C. issued several singles and 3 studio albums. Come 1989 and Buzzcocks had reformed. Since that time, there have been 6 more albums. Sadly, Pete Shelley passed away in 2018. Steve has grabbed the reins and is now frontman with a new lineup. And since 2000, he has recorded and released 4 solo albums to date. Well, welcome, Steve.
Hello, nice to be here. Yes. Very good.
Nice of you to join me. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, let's begin. Let's begin back at the beginning. Dust off some of those cobwebs up there in the attic. So you were born in Manchester, but you grew up in Bradford and Rusholme.
No, yes, I was born in Manchester. We actually lived in Longsight, which is in the centre of Manchester, till 7 years old. Then I moved to Bradford in Manchester, which is another area of Manchester, but it's very much in the town centre, Bradford. But there's a Bradford in Yorkshire in another town, like another state, and people think I moved to that sometimes. But those areas are central Manchester, so yeah. 9:55, I was born here, started to live my life. It's pretty much the centre of Manchester.
Center, okay. Well, talk about your upbringing and your childhood.
Well, the kind of regular thing, really. Close-knit communities in the centre. A lot of houses that were all kind of next to each other. So that made like a close. You kind of knew everybody in the street. We had these streets, and everybody knew people in the streets. And there was a lot of warmth and kind of a sense of community in a way,
Right.
But it wasn't much money, or anything like that. But it's funny. I don't recall people wanting too much then. Obviously, they wanted food to live and stuff. But that was 9:55, and then by the age of 6 or 7 years old, suddenly it became the 60s where people were getting washing machines and fridges and stuff like that, which became something else. But also, I do remember hearing Little Richard and Elvis and Chuck Berry. My cousin had those records, and I used to hear them. And my mum had Nat King Cole records, 78s and stuff like that. And then suddenly it was 1962 or 63. I heard the Beatles for the first time, and I heard Bob Dylan. I had the first Beatles EP, Twist and Shout, but my friend, his sister, who was 16, and we were about 7 years old, I think, she had the first Beatles album and the first Dylan album. And so I'd go across the road and listen to those 2 albums. She also had a hairdryer, which I'd never seen in my life, We used to dry her hair with a towel, you know.
Right.
And I've got to remember, like, I think the Russians had put Sputnik in space a couple of years earlier, you know, which seemed like very future. And I thought it was like a Russian Sputnik she's drying her hair with, but she's drying a long blonde hair in the mirror. And I'm watching her do this, fascinated by the machine, you know, and at the same time, I'm listening to the Beatles' first album, Please, Please Me, and all that stuff. And then I hear this other, Bob Dylan, how many roads must a man walk down? I thought, I don't know what that guy's saying. I'm 7 years old, but I know that guy's saying something. And they're still trying to figure out to this day what he's saying. But that had a big impact on me as well. I didn't realize at the age of 7, all that imagery, listening to them 2 records and watching her dry long blonde hair, that kind of crystallized my life, you know.
Mm-hmm. So now when you listen to those early songs, do you immediately think of a hairdryer?
You know, I never thought about that, but it probably would occur to me some way. It was just a powerful image all at once because, you know, the music was sexual in its way. You could say that about the Beatles. Perhaps not as sexual as Little Richard, but it did have a sexuality, particularly at that point. And the same with Dylan in a kind of more cerebral way, I think, you know, in a more poetic way or something. But watching her dry hair was quite sexual as well. So the music and the sexuality, which I've always been a part of each other, really, in rock and roll, you know, that mix is there, yeah.
Right.
But the hairdryer was probably wanted with the computers one day.
Right.
Little did I know.
When you mentioned Little Richard, when you first heard about him, did you think he was actually a little man, Little Richard?
You know what? I don't. You know, you never know. I may have done, literally. You might think the guy must be little, wasn't he? But he was a giant of a character, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, normally people are called little because they're all small, aren't they? So maybe I did it. Yeah. But also it just, you know, kind of names, like growing up with the cowboy films and as a kid as well on the TV, you know, they all had kind of names and slang names. So it just sounded cool, Little Richard, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same as little Stephen Van Zandt. He's not.
Yeah. Were either of your parents musicians or musically inclined?
No, but my dad kind of liked music, but he wasn't musical at all. Or my mum, really, you know. But my dad had Johnny Cash records, so one thing I always remember him playing was that live in San Quentin. Or Folsom Prison, I think it was, where Johnny Cash asked for a glass of water and he gets in a tin cup, you know.
Yeah.
And he goes, just serve everything in tin cups. And as a kid, it was like, wow, the guy's playing in a jail there for the prisoners, you know. That was kind of and my dad used to play that, you know. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison with my head held high. You know. Yeah. So I remember him playing that, and Frankie Lane as well.
Oh, yeah, Frankie Lane, yeah. Riders in the Sky and all that. Yeah, that's some
Mule Train, all that
Mule
stuff.
Train. Yeah.
And Nat King Cole they had and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating the not the obsession, but how country and western was really picked up over there, you know, in the UK. There's a lot of you know, affinity for that kind of music.
There is, yeah, because it's a weird crossover, isn't it? But it's a simple, fundamental thing, the country and western, but you know, very deep and dark and very real in a lot of ways. And I think regular working people can relate to that, even over here, even
right.
You know, even though it's not right. And also, we grew up with a lot of cowboy films, you know.
Right.
They was always on the TV, cowboy films. And there was always a kind of some moral tale, you know, Laramie and all those kind of shows, you know. We all grew up with the Cowboys, the things.
Yes,
So,
Shane.
well, yes, Shane, you know,
Shane
you
was a
name
big-
it. And all the John Wayne things, Alan Ladd.
Oh,
I think he used to have to stand on a box because he was small.
he was short.
Yeah. So I think when they filmed the scenes, he had to stand on a box.
Right.
The right ideas.
Right.
He should have been called Little Alan Ladd, shouldn't he? But so yeah, my dad had played that kind of stuff, you know. But he was summoning Johnny Cash there again. That was a bit like, you know, Dylan in a way. My dad was playing that, and I discovered Dylan, and there's a kind of crossover there, and it's some kind of realism in what they're singing about, you know. So there was that, but my folks weren't musical at all, really. So it was, you know, it's the birth of this sort of swinging 60s, and 60s were taking off, you know, people getting cars and things like that. And like I say, washing machine. I know in America, I think it was perhaps in the 50s that was happening, but it was more the 60s over here when that was taken off for regular folks. And it took a lot while to get that thing together over here. You know? So certainly, you know, you had money and you could get records and things like that. And the glamour of it all, you know. Suddenly then on the TV was a program called Ready, Steady, Go, which suddenly you saw the Rolling Stones and then the Kinks and the Who and all them 60s invasion bands that invaded America later. You know?
Right.
All within the year of sort of making themselves known over here. So I was a child of that, really, you know. Now, at that age, when they say you listen to the, you know, whatever you're exposed to, that seems to be the most important music to, you know. It's a funny thing, that, isn't it? It's like when, you know, kids now grow up and sort of find some group which might seem alien to us, but whatever generation it is, you seem to, the music that's most important is the first things you're exposed to half the time, you know. Right. So I was kind of exposed to all that, really. All that, you know, it's like 1 minute the Rolling Stones had a single out, then it was the Kinks and the Who, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, you know. It just seemed every week they had a great single out, you know. And I loved all that. And then I loved the clothes as well, you know, because there was a bit dandy and foppish over here with all this stuff, you know.
Right.
You know, the kind of 60s stuff, you know. And then, of course, the long hair and all that kind of thing, you know. You know, it started becoming, you know, it became a culture and you know, a kind of thinking thing as well. It was a bit more than kids just tapping your feet to the beat, you know. It started to open out into this thing, you know.
Right. Were there local record shops opening up then? Maybe like Woolworths. Was there a Woolworths close to you?
There was Woolworths, yeah. I mean, I couldn't afford it was a while before, I was 10 years old before I could actually afford an album, you know. And my folks got it for me, you know. It was just, you could kind of get the single, but the albums were expensive those days. My first album was actually the Beatles' Help, you know, which I still have.
Good.
But going in a small shop, they had washing machines, irons, you know, all that kind of domestic kitchen stuff and everything else, you know, all the modern technology that had come in. And in the corner was like a couple of shelves with the records.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't even a record store. It was just you know, like modern appliances and things. It would be about 1965, and they said the records are over there in the corner, and it was, you know, like a shelf with like albums and singles, and that was the first thing. And then, of course, record shops started to open and stuff a little bit after that.
I know some of I did an interview with a guy who said a drugstore carried albums too. That was another.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there would have been that point when it's like people, kids want these records, but there's no shop, we'll take some and put them to the side, put them near the vacuum cleaners, That's what it seemed to be, And then at some point, there must have been somebody says, I'm going to open a shop that just sells records, But in them early days, they probably didn't want to do. They probably couldn't believe that suddenly you could sell thousands of records, so many, or have a shop that would have every kind in. I mean, it seems so obvious now, but obviously at the time, they must have thought, well,
they
just
didn't
put it in the drugstore.
Right. They didn't think there would be that demand. They didn't think there would be that demand for them that early.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's it, I mean, it became like a worldwide craze, didn't it? I mean, lots of they obviously wouldn't have known that because they would have owned a records store right away, wouldn't they?
Right.
Like you say, it'd be like put it in a local drugstore, or in my case, with the washing machines and the appliances, or anywhere else they could. It'd be interesting to see them early record stores or the early outlets for records, because whatever business you had, they might have said, like, do you think you could sell some records in the corner there? Whatever they're selling.
All right. 1981 was when the band called it a day. What were the reasons that you can pinpoint?
Well, I just think we put a lot of records out in a short space of time, within about 5 years, I think it was. And we'd done a lot of tours and it got crazy. It was the kind of classic thing, really, where you was either on tour or you was in the studio making a single or an album, I mean, I loved it all, but it's very exhausting and very trying. Anybody that's been in a band on that kind of level and intensity will tell you it does take its toll on you a little bit, And I think we kind of got exhausted or lost, particularly Pete. I think he lost his way a bit, I think it burnt him out a bit because we used to party and rock and roll as well, People look at the Buzzcocks, but it was a bit like Hammer of the Gods on the road, like Let's Zeppelin or something. People wouldn't have because we never mentioned that in interviews. We just thought, well, that's what we do in Manchester. We used to have, know how to party. So we never plied our trade of saying that in interviews. It was just like, that's no big deal, But to be honest, when we're on the road, we drink, do the craziness, as extreme as the gigs were, as good as the gigs were, the parties had to be as good, It was all part of being young and embracing it, and everybody in the band, I'm sure, that's what they get into it for as much as the music, or it does go hand in hand with it.
I think so.
But after 5 or 6 years, and like you see with many bands, suddenly the wheels start coming off the wagon, And I think that's what kind of happened. We needed a break, and we was going to take a break, and it became a bit longer. Till you got to the point, I think, where I think Pete needed a long break, So he had a, we had a break, or the months were a few months off, and then drum machines were on the horizon, and then he came up with that song Homo Sapien and stuff, and he thought he could kind of stay at home, really, and do things electronically. The electronics were coming in the 80s. So I think he thought he'd leave the band, he won't have to tour us, and do all the things that the old traditional bands do. He can make it on all these computers. So I think he was kind of thinking like that, really,
Right.
I mean, he was supposed to make some demos. We was in a studio at the end in Manchester. I'd made my demos on a Port studio, 4-track thing, and he only had about 2 songs on his. So Martin Russian took him back to his studio in London, and they started working with the drum machine, and that's how Homo Sapien came, because it was he played it me acoustically, But he said, I better go and sort his demos out with him. Now, those demos became what known as the Homo Sapien album. So the demos became like finished things. So that's when Pete decided he had enough and he was going to leave,
Right.
And so he left, and like that was the end of the band, really. And I went on and I formed Flag of Convenience,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Well, his
So-
Homo Sapien became a huge dance club hit too.
Mm.
Wonder how Pete felt about that, coming from a punk band, and then he's got his song on the dance club circuit. Kind of interesting.
Well, it was a kind of going back to them last 6 singles. We was getting a bit experimental. I had a song called "Running Free" on there, which I used an old organ on and stuff, and I'd run it through an echo box and that. We was kind of, the times were changing, and that so them last 6 singles were getting experimental, And then, of course, electronics were coming in, the drum machine and kind of computers or simple things, keyboard, electronic keyboard kind of things. And so I think the Buzzcocks would have kind of, if we'd have stayed together, we would have used some of that, because suddenly by the 1980s, everybody was using that. It's like the whole punk thing had kind of changed into this, what they called new romantics. Everybody was using these electronics, So I think the Buzzcocks, I would have had to go at that with them. We'd still have the guitars there, but use some of that if would have been interesting to see where we go at that point.
Yeah, what direction you would have gone. Well,
Yeah.
talk about Flag of Convenience. You and John Mayer formed that. Who were the other members?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I formed it, and then John moved down the road from me. So I said, come and join the band. And John actually, I think he was with us for a year, but Flag of Convenience went on for we made quite a few, John was only on the first, I think he was only on the first EP, So it was my band, really. I just said, why don't you come play with us? And then he played for a bit and he left and he got into dragster car racing. So he went off and did that. But I made a lot of records with Flag of Convenience, really. So, and there was various drummers and stuff like that. So I'd gather people. And for me, it was interesting playing with other people because I'd only really played with the Buzzcocks, who were all magical, It was a great combination, the Buzzcocks lineup. But suddenly it was interesting to play with other musicians, which I'd never done, And I did many styles with Flag of Convenience, went through a lot of changes each album, but it was still guitar based. And we did have a keyboard in the early days, this old keyboard I bought for $100 that I used on Running Free. So when all them electronic people come out, when we do a live gig, they see a keyboard and think we was kind of like that. And it was like, they got a shock, Maybe a little bit of keyboard might embellish something, but it wasn't that kind of electronic. Suddenly I'm there with guitars. And in the early 80s, that frightened people. It's like if you had a guitar in like 1981 or 1982 and 3 or something, it was like, fuck, it was like, you needed a keyboard or something. You was either use a dinosaur or like, what the fuck? That's rock and roll. You can't be doing that. It's all these kids pressing your buttons. So it freaks a lot of people out, especially when I signed to Seymour Stein took me out for a meal. We had a meeting in Fortnum and Mason's here, and I'd made a kind of 80s sounding record called Life on the Telephone. It had the chorus pedal kind of guitar sound and all that. Because suddenly all the music and the mentality had changed that to the 80s electronic thing, as we know, all around the world. And so we liked the single. And then he wanted to talk about the album. Well, I said, look, I want to do an album called The Accused, and it's going to sound like the Stooges. And he
Oh,
said,
yeah,
"You kidding me?"
Iggy and the Stooges, yeah.
Yeah, and I said, "It's going to sound more like the Stooges and all for this." And he said, "I just signed this new chick, Madonna. She's going to be really good."
Oh,
You see what I mean? He's like, the music's changing. I said, I ain't changing. This is probably going to sound more like the Stooges than Madonna. So we kind of parted company then. I said, you've got your pop single. He loved the pop single we put out through Warner Brothers and all that. But I said, no, I'm getting in this rocks. I'm getting in this fucking heavy guitar stuff.
Right.
And that was the 80s for you, see. It wasn't like that. So anyway, I think I formed my own label, and then I went through other things. It went through other distributors, and we put a lot out like that with Flag of Convenience. It went through different changes, but we were still kind of working with guitars and stuff through all that tough 80s period,
Mm-hmm.
when there was your Madonnas and your Boy Georges, all them kind of people,
Well,
and that was a weird time for anyone with a guitar at that moment,
I wanted to bring up a few of the Flag of Convenience tracks that I like. I think my favorite one is "Last Train to Safety."
Oh yeah,
I think that's my favorite track.
Yeah, I like that one too. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. Then again, I mean, it's we made the drums sound a little electronic, even though it's live drums. We put a bit of reverb on, and that was acoustic as well, which I like. But it's like a fast acoustic,
Right.
or quite up tempo acoustic, isn't it? But that was a good song for that 80s period, because you can kind of feel it's got, acknowledging the 80s a bit, which you kind of had to really at that point. I think everybody did in the world. Without, for me, going too far into it,
Right.
But yeah, Last Train to Safety, I love, and then we had all the echo in the middle and stuff.
Yeah, that's the part I like too. The echo. Speaking of drums, I like the tribal drums you use on 50 Years of Comparative Wealth. I like the drumming. Yeah. It's almost like Indian. It's almost like an American Indian. Dum, 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 dum. It's almost like that.
Yeah. Kind of mention smoke signals to higher water. But yeah, I wanted it's very atmospheric, that drumming, isn't it? I wanted that kind of tribal thing. And mainly it's all about the bass pedal. I think it's constant boom, 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 which I really love. And like you say, it's tribal. And that's got to come from the American Indians, hasn't it? That it just sounds like a proper.
It does.
War dance or some kind of rhythm like that. Right. But it's very dramatic, and I kind of loved it for that. And I don't think there's any fills or anything. I think it's just that bass pedal and a couple of other minimalist bits. But yeah, that sets the tone for the whole song, And I think, it was called 50 Years of Comparative Wealth. It was just kind of analysing things, really, in terms of probably what we'd all been through from the early days from the 50s to the 60s to what wealth had done and the distribution of wealth and all that, because suddenly everybody could afford a car, or everybody could, there was a lot of a lot of, the world had become a consumer place,
Right.
So it's kind of, I think, if I remember right, analysing who you were in this, who we are, who we are in the midst of all this consumer world now,
What's our place?
And what wealth and money had done, the world came richer, and not everybody got rich out of it, but I mean, how the world changed through that, stuff like that.
Right.
And also, I think it says, as I step off the bus, I see before my eyes faces well hidden. And I was just thinking, like, you know, that kind of terror thing where people don't show their emotions a bit, and is the world going this way where we can't really reveal how we feel, you know, to each other in the street or whatever, you know, kind of a,
I think you were,
you
I
know,
think you were on, I think you were onto something there. I think so. 'Cause that's kind of the direction we've headed, it seems like. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that kind of thing, you know, when it's all the world of finance and gain and greed and all that. And that frightening nightmare of like the humanity's gone, you can't really, you know, your face is hidden really, and you know, even though it's there,
Right.
the expressions are gone. The face of happiness or
Right.
bewilderment or anything else, you know.
Well,
Suddenly it's
I've
a
heard,
serious kind of face change,
I've heard,
something else. You know.
I've heard in London, especially, uh, and it could be because of the population, so many people. But when they're walking down the street, most people are looking down. They're not looking forward. They don't look, you know, at people. They're looking down when they walk. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, it can be a lonely place, London. You know, you've always said that in the midst of thousands of people that are in the centre, you can be very lonely on your own. Then, in a way, you know, if you don't have friends or if you don't, you know, but it's only when you break down one to one with people that
Mhm.
most people are talk to in London, and you find there's the friendliness there. But like you say, if you walk down the street, nobody will acknowledge or stop for you in a sense
Mm.
until you engage with them somehow, you know. But other than that, yeah, they won't really look at you sometimes, you know. Not on a general level, you know.
Right.
You've
Well,
just got these crowds of people going in shops and everything else. But
right.
unless you've got some reason to have contact with them, and then you realise they're kind of friendly, you know.
Uh,
But en masse, yeah, it's almost kind of like you need to go about your business and don't get involved, you know what I mean, with
you know,
anybody on the street.
that that reminds me of I've always felt this way, but when I heard George Carlin, the comedian, I really
Right.
respect. Have you ever watched his shows? Or the documentary on him is really good. He said he doesn't like people in groups. He doesn't like groups, but he likes them one on one. He does like
Yeah,
people in a one on one, and there's something to be said about that. That group mentality, you know, that people conform to the group and they water it down. They say what they feel like other people want to hear. They're not really honest, but you get people in a one on one, and then you'll find out who that person really is. So yeah,
yeah, that's yeah, he's got the right way of looking at it, really, isn't he? Yeah, that's an
yeah,
interesting. That's kind of the thing, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
it's true. You know, because like groups can be terrifying, really, or like you don't know what you're really experiencing because, like I say, nobody's really showing themselves too much, you know. And also, like I say, the other thing, the backup thing is just say what the group wants to hear and you'll be okay. You know what I mean?
Right. People want to be accepted. There, it's
Yeah.
always yeah. They want to be accepted. Well, a few other songs up from Flag of Convenience. Exiles is another really good track.
Mm.
Tomorrow's Sunset
Yeah.
and Life with the Lions. I like Life with the Lions. That's
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of the songs you mentioned, it's like you can hear with Flag of Convenience different sound, you know what I mean? A different, slightly different kind of approach to it all on each song because I was kind of thinking at this point, well, we've done that kind of thing. Now let's try that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
always hoping to be not necessarily experimental, but something different each time where it sounded like Fag of Convenience, but it didn't have to as well, you know. But
Mhm.
Life for the Lions, we got a great sound on that. It's just one of them things with that song. It's I think I multi-tracked the vocal or something, and probably the studio I was working in was like it was on the old tape as well, the 2-inch tape and things, and they had a great sound and Exiles as well. You know, then again, that was still in the 80s. And I thought, this is quite an up-tempo song. Actually, it was on an EP, wasn't it? It was it was the single of the EP, you know. So there's a CD of Flag of Convenience hits or whatever it is, you know, the time period. And that's got quite a different selection of the Flag of Convenience history, you know.
Mm-hmm. It is a good collection. It's a good collection.
Yeah, it's on Cherry Red Records, and it's a collection, you know.
Right.
But I've got some other ones as well. I did a kind of jangly album called Northwest Skyline, which is out of print now, but a lot of people keep asking me if we can reprint it, you know, or put it on CD and record again. So I must look into that as well at some point, because that was a lot different from, you know, it's more jangly guitars.
Right.
I say jangly, but it was a bit clearer at a certain time compared to the stuff we've been talking about. So there was about 8 years of Flag of Convenience with all different things, really.
Right.
And like I say, Last Train to Safety was a good one as well, you know. So a lot of variations and stuff going on over those years, because there was different lineups as well, you know. A drummer would leave if he wanted to get married, or somebody else would leave. It was kind of like a free-flowing thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Till it got to the point after all that, when I started doing the Steve Diggle albums, I thought, well, I won't be splitting up with myself. I'll just call it Steve Diggle now, because I thought I've got Buzzcocks' name behind me, or part of me, or mainly a Flag of Convenience, F.O.C. with me. And then I thought, a friend of mine said, you should just call it Steve Diggle now, because how many more names are you going to... Two's kind of okay, but, you know, I didn't want a list of names of... But, you know...
AKA, right? AKA.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I thought two's pretty good, you know. I thought I have to keep thinking of different brand names and different things. It's like...
we'll talk about the reformation. Oh, bless you, of Buzzcocks.
Yep.
In '89. So did you and Pete start talking again?
Yeah. Just to clean up as well. I mean, you know, I've got this box set of 4 CDs, I think it is, and an album called The Wheels of Time, and that's the Steve Diggle solo albums, which I kind of did some of them even when the Buzzcocks were going, just before we get onto the Pete thing. And that's been an interesting era as well. But not sure you can get that. Yeah, Wheels of Time it's called, and probably see it on the internet. But that's a whole body of work there. That's different, you know. Post Flag of Convenience, and then of course, like you say, then Buzzcocks reformed in 1989. So I'd see Pete occasionally, and I'd go, people keep asking me when Buzzcocks are getting back together, you know, because after 8 years, I kind of thought, I think I'd seen Pete on and off here and there, and you know, we'd probably have a drink or something, or I'd bump into him in a club, or have a drink, and I'd go, maybe we should get the band back. People keep asking me, and then I'd kind of stopped for a while. I thought, that boat's gone too far out to sea now. Yeah. Maybe we'll never get back, you know, that's it. And then, because he wasn't sure, I don't know, you know, we'd talk up, you know, I'd mention it, and then it wouldn't go any further, and that was it for, you know, on and off over a few years. And then when I had Flag of Convenience, I started to abbreviate to F.O.C. And so when we was playing in Europe, we was playing in Paris at the Locomotive Club, which is next door to the Moulin Rouge. And it holds about 2,500 people. And the promoter had put up a billboard, you know, a poster saying, Buzzcocks F.O.C. So,
Uh,
so I kind of said, look, we're not playing any Buzzcocks songs, we're playing Flag of Convenience songs. And he said, yeah, but it's Steve from the Buzzcocks and the band's F.O.C. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, he's thinking he'll put the poster up so they know where I've come in from and probably bring in more. So there's 2,500 people there. And I didn't play a Buzzcocks song, but it was billed as Buzzcocks F.O.C. And it was a great night. They were singing songs they'd never heard, the French people. But it was fantastic. And then we went on to Berlin, and it was billed as Buzzcocks F.O.C. there. And so I can see why promoters were doing that. But that was kind of the catalyst for Buzzcocks getting back. Because what happened was Ian Copeland was our agent in the States there. And he phoned up and said, I believe Buzzcocks are back. You know, I've seen the posters in Germany and in Paris. And I kind of told him, I said, well, look, it's my band Flag of Convenience, and we're not back. But having said that, then he said, well, you never really did a farewell tour of the States or anywhere. And we said, no, you're right. The band just kind of folded one day, you know. There was no time and date probably, but it just kind of disbanded. So we said, why don't we do a 3-week tour of America, you know, a kind of a farewell tour or whatever you want, you know. And I thought that was a good idea, and Pete thought it was a good idea. And they phoned the other two guys, John and Steve, and everybody was up for it. So that's, through those posters in Europe, them Flag of Convenience things, that was the catalyst that brought us back, you know.
Okay.
So probably got to thank some a French promoter and a German promoter.
For
It's kind of nothing to do with us. So that's how we got it. That's how we got it back. Because, like I say, Ian made the call, and then we was going, you know what, we haven't all been in the same room for 7 years together. Not all of us. We might have made each other separately here and there, but and so we got back and we did that. I think it was like a month, 3 weeks or a month tour of America, you know. And it was great to be back, and it was great to be back in America as well. So, and that's where we started out with it. And we kind of go, that seems to work. And as we're doing this tour, somebody's gone, they want you in Japan and they want you in Australia. And we're going, okay, I thought this was only like, we're just doing a tour of America. And then, like I say, Australia and Japan and all that got added on. And we come full circle. It's like they want you to play Britain as well. And so we ended up doing all that in South America. You know, we ended up doing a world tour really from that kind of month's tour of America. It just, things get added on. And so at the end of that year, we kind of said, well, it looks like we're back together.
Yeah.
And so, because we was just going to do that tour and then say, okay, we've kind of done a farewell tour, or it's nice to see everybody. We'll all go back to what we were doing, you know. Because I was just about to get a deal with London Records with Flag of Convenience, you know, a new deal. And that never happened. You know, kind of got back in the Buzzcocks. And so after that year's tour, we kind of thought, well, let's make some records, you know. And so, you know, we never sat down at a table and went like, let's make a record, let's do a tour and all that. It's kind of like we did the tour, realized maybe we're back, and then we started putting some records out, you know. And that's, you know, how it all came back, really.
Came back. Well,
but we never kind of sat down and planned it all. Or said,
you didn't just
none of it. No.
It just kind of materially just started. Momentum started. Yeah.
Very organic and accidental, which is kind of classic Buzzcocks in a way.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
If we
I
was
wanted to talk about,
businessmen, we could have sat down and planned it all like they do, but
right,
we've never really done that,
right.
So it was just like, we'll do the tour of the States, then we'll go back to what we're doing. And that
Right.
didn't happen. It was like, oh, we said we're traveling the world now. Looks like we're back,
Well,
So we
well,
carried on making records then,
right. After getting back together, I wanted to talk a little bit about the 2000, the new millennium, and your releases and albums that came out after that, and your solo, some of your solo, on some reality.
Yeah.
You worked with ex Easterhouse drummer Gary Rostock. And
Yes.
that's interesting. Another Manchester band. I'm working on a written interview currently with guitarist Ivor Perry. So
All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Oh,
That's
wait.
a,
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah.
that's a nice message on Just Because. I like on the song Just Because. I like the message in that song.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that song. And Gary was a friend of mine. I kind of met him in the early 80s, I think. And he used to be in the bars in the centre of town. I think I first met him in a music shop. And eventually, I live in London now, not Manchester. I've lived in London for quite a long time. And Gary came to London. And he came to my house and had a drum kit here. And next minute, it's like, well, you might as well be the drummer on the Song Reality album, So
Right.
he was a friend, but also, like you say, he used to play in Easterhouse. And so it worked out on that album,
Yeah.
It worked out with him doing that, with him playing the drums,
Yeah, so that works.
But I like the album. A lot of people like the album. It's a bit more done when it's, what do you call it, rustic, or it's got its own charm and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that very quickly as well. I'd written the songs already sequenced.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew what the first song is, the second song, the third. There was all made, so it all kind of made sense, or it felt like all part of this one thing. And so when we went in the studio, we were so well rehearsed with it. We did it in a few days, and it was like, let's do side one just because, and whatever the next tracks were, we did it all like that, and that was recorded on tape as well, old school tape. So nobody had to chop anything up. It's like, that's side one of the album, now that's side two, And the guy in the studio said, you won't be able to do that. And I think it took us about 2 or 3 days, We'd done a lot of the album, and then I think we might have mixed it all in that time as well,
Mm-hmm.
It was all done very quick, but we knew exactly what we was doing. And it's got a great sound to it,
Yeah.
It has a certain thing. And a lot of that's live, There's a track called Heavy Hammer, and it starts off a bit groovy, And one of the magic moments where I kind of like the bass played and the drummer lock in like so perfect, It was kind of like, okay, let's start that song Heavy Hammer, and kind of go like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the bass and the drums come in so tight. It was amazing,
Yeah.
So that was first take. A lot of the stuff was first take, but I couldn't believe how tight that was on that one.
Yeah, that was tight.
But I kind of like, a lot of people like that Some Reality album. It has a lot of charm, and I like it too, It's got a certain thing about it,
Yeah.
And there's a couple of acoustic songs on there, and other things,
Well, on the 2003 single "Sick City Sometimes," that's a great rockin' track. I love the guitar in the chorus. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song too. We still play that a lot with Buzzcocks now. That a lot of people that was off the album the album didn't have a name. It was just like just called Buzzcocks. I thought we should have a name. And Pete said, "Oh, let's not bother with the name." But so I kind of call it the Black Album. If the Beatles had the White Album, right? The Black Album. But I think that's one of the star moments on it is the Six City Sometimes, you know. And I was thinking about alienation in your town, you know, like the town controllers and planners and mayors, and, or, you know, are you forgotten or being left behind by your town or your city, you know? You know, you're a citizen of a town, but are we getting alienated from, you know, the powers that be and stuff? And kind of working on those kind of lines, you know. And, you know, as your personal things. It's like when you don't know who you are and you're walking with a scar in the places that are breaking down your mind. And I was thinking, you know, a lot of people have problems, you know, those lyrics are kind of broad, but, you know, there's a lot of things breaking down your mind and all that stuff. It's a complicated day, busy people on their way, mirrored buildings reflecting in your eyes, you know. And if you think about like Houston and Dallas, you know, them big glass buildings, you know, reflecting, and we've got them all over the world. I'm thinking that's the corporate kind of thing. So I had those kind of lines of like walking through the city and the reflections of the sun from these buildings and things and scars in your mind. And then suddenly a friend of mine's, you know, said, turn the TV on, and it was 9/11, you know. So I saw the first tower go down, or the first tower had just gone, and then I saw the second one go, you know, like everyone else, that made the world stand still. It shocked everybody. So I hadn't got to the end of the song of Six City, you see, Six City Sometimes. And so the song at the end becomes something else. It becomes 9/11, you know. Now those buildings take a fall and it tries to kill us all in the name of something zero in your mind, you know. Because nobody really understood why the fuck, you know, that those buildings had to come down really for whatever reason. It just seemed just so out there and crazy to do that. So it ends off talking about, you know, 9/11 by the end of 60, you know. And also I thought the title as well, New York was suddenly a sick city having to be repaired, you know, all the emotional and everything else about that. So it's got that in as well in that song. But it started off as a city song till I turned the TV on and saw that, you know. Because I was kind of on a bus. I was writing the lyrics. We'd done the backing track. Normally I have my lyrics. Normally I have most of what I'm going to sing before I go in. And on this one, I thought, I got a bus and I'm kind of writing down the words or moving them around a bit. And I thought I need to have the words for them. And the manager was picking me up to take me to the studio because they was ready to record the vocal. And like I say, 9/11 happened, and so that became the last verse, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, so it's got a mixture of things. But apart from that, it's a great rocking, tuneful song as well, isn't it? That's what I like about it. But it has got that bit of depth of lyrics in it as well, which
really
all round, I think that's one of the best songs of that era of us reforming, you know what I mean?
I do too. I feel
it's like one of the star attractions of songs since we've got back, I think, you know.
You say you still play it live and it gets a great reaction. I wanted to talk about one of your solo albums. I think this is your best album, Serious Contender. I think it's I think it's and I would categorize that as a power pop album. It reminds me of a lot of the power pop from the late 70s that came out, and it's really tight. Like you mentioned that word. Lie in bed. I really like the guitar in that one. It's
Oh
great.
yeah,
Yeah, that one. Wallpaper World
yeah,
is another one, and then Starbucks Around the World.
yeah,
That's yeah. I love the message, of course, because they are all over the world. You know,
yeah,
definitely. Across the Sun. That one's a
yeah,
little. That one's a little
yeah,
meatier, but nice riffs in that one. But
yeah,
I think my favorite on the whole album is Terminal. I
yeah,
think yeah, it's I have to say it's one of your best songs that you've written and composed. I think I really do.
yeah,
Terminal. And then If I Never Get to Heaven's another. So it's chock full of great songs on that album.
yeah. Now, now you've just mentioned all them things. I'm thinking, fuck, that was a great album, really.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a great era for the solo band because I'd rehearsed in my house some of that. So the guys had come round. I think it was Kevin Hayes on the drums, I think, and Chris, the bass player. But yeah, it's there was some great songs on that album, and we used the kind of old school studio, and got a great sound as well. But the songs were great, Wallpaper World and stuff, and Terminal, like you say, it's a beautiful song to me. That one, it's very emotional or something, you know. Well,
yeah,
it's about the end of something, Terminal, you know.
yeah,
I didn't. I tried not to be too specific about it's about this or about that, you know. Um, it could be the end of something for anybody, an emotional thing or somebody dying or a loss of anything in your life, you know, whatever it is, you know. Um, um, but um, but that whole album, you're right. There's a lot of catchy songs on there, and that's got its sound, hasn't it? You know,
yeah,
and yeah, I don't know. There's a bit of '70s in there or
yeah,
something, is there?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
bit of '70s rock or something.
yeah. The power
Um,
pop. That's what I.
yeah, power pop, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. And
Hmm.
it was okay for you to go in that direction too. Perfectly all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
On
right.
on 2010's Air Conditioning,
Yeah,
um, I like Planet Star. That's a nice rocker. That's a nice
yeah,
record. Now this one I want to know. Listen to Your Tambourine.
yeah.
Is that perhaps a tribute to the Birds?
Well, um, it probably is somewhere, you know. I, I thought it'd be nice to have a kind of jangly kind of song, you know.
Right, right.
I could have made it a lot more jangly, but I wanted to kind of, I suppose, do like, you know, a kind of uh, country folk rock song, you know, which the Birds kind of do, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
Mhm.
It wasn't particularly meant to be that, but there, there are definitely this. That must have been an influence somewhere in it, definitely, you know.
Mm.
But I kind of what's nice about it, and that's probably the Birds kind of thing, is when it all goes, the actual playing and the sound all goes very low, you know,
Mhm.
till you can almost hear a pin drop. And I kind of like that about, you know, the little quiet jangliness when I'm sort of playing quieter and then it builds up again with the drums, you know. And that might be very Birds kind of thing, you know. So
Yeah.
that would be there somewhere because it's kind of like a classic, I say, yeah, folk rock kind of
Uh,
birdsy thing in a way, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well,
But
of
all
course,
I'm trying to say about was I wasn't particularly thinking of Birds at the time,
yeah.
but the Birds would definitely be there, you know, in that style of playing and stuff, isn't it? You know,
Yeah, that's
um,
subconsciously, maybe
subconsciously that's
yeah,
definitely there somewhere, you know.
you know, Mr.
I just wanted
Tambourine.
to, I just wanted in the middle of that song to take it down real low and have that little jangly bit, and then it builds up, you know.
Right, right.
And that might be very Birdsy. I don't know what it is, but yeah, you know. But it's a nice little tune, and it
Yeah.
probably reminds me of things even like the Beatles and stuff and all that kind of, all them folk rock kind of things, that period, probably like say the Birds really and stuff. So I liked it for all them reasons,
Yeah.
I was probably there thinking back to my subconsciously, all
Right.
the records we talked about earlier start coming back,
Well, another track on there, speaking of the drums, Rock Revolution Punk. I like the
Oh, yeah.
drum beat. It's a unique drum beat on that track. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the air conditioning, I thought it's about the title of the album. I thought it's the political inhalation of the air, but I thought air conditioning's everywhere, isn't it? Air conditioning in all the homes.
Mhm.
Everybody's, you sit on the side of fans. It seemed to be everywhere, and I thought it's the air we're breathing, not them machines on the walls. But it was like a play on that. But
Right.
so we've got the different songs going on there. Political Star and that Planet Star and stuff. And then I thought need a kind of not punky one, but some kind of rock revolution punk. Something a little bit not revolutionary, but a bit bit angrier and stuff. So I think that's a bit more primitive. That one,
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of fire in its belly. That song as well. Rock revolution punk.
Yeah, good point on that.
And I kind of do an acoustic version at the end, don't I? If I remember.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go in a different direction here and get your take on this. What you appeared in the 2013 comedy film Vinyl. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Actually, it was a lot of fun. Actually, I mean, I met the director Sarah a couple of times. I'd meet her at a bar in town where I'd have some meetings, and she was talking about this film, and she gave me the script, and I read it, and in some ways, I thought it's a little jokey for me,
Right.
It's not really what I think I should be doing. Some of it, and because I was going to play the main part, and I thought there's a bit of a fun element there that's a bit too not crazy, but it's not. I don't think it suits me too much, and I don't think the Buzzcocks punk rock was a bit more serious or arty than that, It was it wasn't like, hey, well, it's so wacky and stuff. This sort of darker elements with Buzzcocks, or existential thinking things or whatever. So I just thought, but anyway, I had the meetings with her, and I read the script with her. So I was going to play the main part, and I wasn't quite sure really whether I wanted to do that really, even though Sarah, the director, was good and the idea was fine for the film. And then suddenly an American tour came up anyway. So I said, I can't be around for 6 weeks soon now. We're on tour. But she said, will you come down for a few days and play yourself? And so that's what I did. So I was quite happy to, I think I'm in a graveyard scene, I'm in the graveyard scene and things like that. And so it was only, but I had a lovely few days down there. So I'm only in it for a short spell of it. But that was interesting enough for me on that one, because the guy that played the main part, Phil Daniels, it suited him better doing that. He's more of an actor and a bit more wacky, so it suited him, So, but I enjoyed the experience and I enjoyed the being there for a couple of days because we had a lot of fun as well. We was at some big country house and there's a few drinks flowing, a lot of jokes and banter, but I enjoyed it. But I just remember thinking, I'll just be like a cross between Clint Eastwood and Bob Dylan. It's my brief. I thought, well, while they're all being going like, hey, why don't we start the band or do this? I just kind of went like, yeah, really, that kind of thing. I thought, I'll try, I thought, I'm no actor, I'm only me. Maybe I'll just do what Clint Eastwood does or Bob Dylan and just look at him and go, yeah,
So, well, at least you now you can add actor to your credits, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, I told Sarah after the movie was done, because we all went out for a meal, months later, and I said, I just thought I'll put those two characters together. That's my kind of brief, my own personal thing, And I thought you can't go wrong with Clint Eastwood and Bob Dylan.
Right.
Yeah, nope, that kind of thing.
So after that experience, you had no aspirations of becoming an actor after that experience.
Not really. No, I funny enough, I got an equity an actor's card in the 80s when it was hard to get one. So a mate of mine used to teach acting for video. So I'd turn up to meet him afterwards. But then sometimes I'd turn up early when he's teaching a class, and then he'd ask me to sit in with people. Because there weren't enough people in the class, or somebody was missing, or you needed somebody else to read with. So I started getting, and that's how I got an equity card. So I did a couple of things as an extra to see how it goes, but I didn't want anyone to know I was in the Buzzcocks or anything. I thought, fuck. But I did a couple of things, and just wanted to see how it all works in the background, like watch them make the television movie. Because I thought I'd been on the television with my guitar, but I've never been kind of naked or unarmed without a guitar or the music,
Right.
And it was only I wanted to see, but I was kind of typecast early on. I mean, so I'm sat there all day watching it with all these other extra people, just kind of fascinating, and it's like a film in itself, So I get up to go to the toilet. It's been quite a few hours on this filming thing, and I said, "You're only kind of camera fodder, This ain't real acting and stuff. I'm only here to kind of check it out for the experience, because I'd just got the card by default, mainly because I was in a band, and these cards were hard to get in the 80s, and I thought, I've got the card, I'll go and see what it's kind of like to be an extra on one of his movies, so. And so I got to go to the toilet. And when I came out of the toilet, the director, who didn't know who I was, said, "Will you come with me? The main guy's going to come out and he's going to walk to the bar and tell you a joke." So it's me and he's got two other guys as well. So three of us at a bar, So I thought I was typecast on the first one. I'm standing at the bar. And the guy's telling me a joke. Now, they had this fake beer there. And I said, no, this is the BBC. I want a proper pint of beer, a real pint. And the BBC are paying for it. And we can't do that, sir. So I got my money out. I said, look, because it was a real bar. It was in a university. I said, I'll pay for it myself. Here's the money, So we did that sketch about 6 times. Well, each time we did it, I had a beer. So, he comes out and tells us a joke, and we were supposed to laugh. Well, I'd had 6 beers by then. I was laughing by the 6th thing, So that was my first job. And then the second job, they go, we wanted to be in a nightclub buying drugs off this girl.
Oh my God. Okay.
So I thought, I'm being typecast here. My first job was at a bar getting drunk, listening to some guy telling jokes. And now the second job, I'm supposed to be pretending to buy drugs in a nightclub, you know. After that, I quit my acting career.
I was going to say that would not.
I figured I don't know what the third job's going to be, but it's, you know,
Right. Right. You'd probably be a hitman or something, you know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I thought this is kind of leading to trouble, you know. It's kind of a mixture of acting and like real life, you know.
Right. Well,
It's like I know how to do those things, but where's it going, you know?
right.
So those were two interesting experiences, and that was before that final film. So I kind of knew a little bit about what's going on in the acting thing, but like I say, I didn't want to be known for that film, but I didn't mind playing myself and doing a little bit in it, you know.
Right.
And the casts were great. We had a lot of great fun, you know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting being in a graveyard. There's a bit where I play a song in the graveyard. I think it's on the YouTube, which is not in the actual film, you know.
Uh-huh.
But
I'll check that out.
Somebody filmed it as like an outtake. Somebody was filming it of me doing it being filmed.
In the graveyard.
I think that, yeah, in the graveyard. But there is the graveyard scene where I'm doing the acting with the other guys as well, which is in the film, but not the bit where I've got the guitar singing. Yeah. Okay. But somebody had filmed that, and it's amazing. Somehow that was on YouTube, you know.
It is on YouTube. Well, yeah. jumping back to a couple more albums. 2014's The Way, Buzzcocks.
Yeah.
A couple of tracks on there that I like: Third Dimension and Chasing Rainbows.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned those two because, you know, we played a show last night and we did those two songs, you know. And I like them as well because with the Third Dimension, I thought somehow I'd got this idea for a groove song, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, years ago, it was my groove for that song, Why Can't I Touch It, you know. Jing, jing, jing. Whereas this one's a different kind of groove and that do, 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 do.
Yeah.
I want a certain feel to it. I want it to feel half dancey, but and half rock and half kind of sensual, you know. That's one of this sensuality about it. But yeah, and then and it's got the experimental things in it as well. I mean, I had a Rickenbacker. I don't know, it's my 12-string one, but anyway, at the end of the Rickenbacker, where the bridge piece is, there's the strings there. So I was plucking the strings on the edge there, not the real string, the bit. Okay. I'm making these weird noises with like echo on, you know, so you can hear. Don't know, it sounds like bells or whatever it sounds like, but you can hear that.
Yeah.
On that Third Dimension track and some other bits. But I just like the constant hypnotic groove of it, you know. And it goes down well live because you've got your other kind of songs, Buzzcocks songs, the poppy ones, the rocky ones, all those kind of areas. And then when we do the Third Dimension, you've got this kind of hypnotic groove or whatever, you know, and so it's great to do live. And live, I kind of let loose and do a lot of avant-garde noises and sounds and guitar riffs and stuff. I can get let loose within that groove. So that gives it an interesting dynamic live, you know. So yeah, I enjoyed doing that one. And then Chasing Rainbows, started doing that, and particularly after Pete, actually, we didn't do it that much when Pete was alive. And then when I was going through some of the songs, I would try, let's do Chasing Rainbows, that's kind of up. And it's, since recording that, it's kind of quite anthemic live. It really works well live, isn't it? Mm. And it's a bit with them fist in your hair kind of one, you know, Chasing Rainbow. It's become a bit like that, the gigs. Whereas initially, it was perhaps more tuneful than like an anthem thing, you know. But really live, it's like really anthemic as well. You see, And they're kind of like doing that. And I like the middle eight. There's something complicated in your mind, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a good one as well to choose. Yeah.
So it takes
so
on
then,
a life. It takes on a
then
life
it-
of It takes
sorry?
on a life of its own in concert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of classic thing where you know, you record tracks in the studio and then you take them out on the road and then they become something else, you know. And over the last year or so, when we've put Chasing Rainbows in, it's like, and we've always put it in towards the end or bringing it on for the encore. Oh, you know, what we got for the encore, let's bring Chasing Rainbows. And then it's taken a new life, you know. And it's quite amazing now, you know, playing it live because people really get into it, you know. It's taking it to another level, you know.
There you go.
Which is nice, you know. I mean, not every song does that, but that one, it's like we all started noticing, like, wow, that's become something else, you know, which is a lovely thing, really. You know?
Well, 2016's Inner Space Times, there's a few tracks on there that I like. Wake Up the Dream, I like the guitar effect in that one. I like that. That's nice. Yeah.
I was kind of my friend, my mate Alan Parker. He'd done this. It was 50 years ago today film, which was about the Beatles, Sergeant Pepper film and stuff. So and I thought, with my solo albums, I thought I've not made like a psychedelic album, you know.
Right.
So this album, Inner Space Time, so I wanted an inner journey and stuff. I thought we can all be the president of our own bodies, you know. Let's go internal instead of external. Let's not look to the president or the prime minister or people outside to try and change our lives. Let's try and go on the inside. So it's Inner Space Times, the journey, and it's your own body, your own country, you know, and all that. That was the kind of thing. And then the psychedelic bit. So, you know, Wake Up the Dream was like that, but it has got that nice guitar and some nice weird chord changes in there as well. Very simple, you know.
Yeah. Well, I remember doing
it. And it's got them lines, and all the things you left behind when you wake up the dream, you know.
Right.
And it was just the idea of waking up a dream, you know what I mean? It's like, are you dreaming in real life, or 1 minute you're dreaming, and then when you wake that up, you know, that realization or something. But it's got an atmosphere, that song that I like about it, yeah. And we got quite a good production on that album as well.
It is great production on that. And then you do a great piano version of Six Cities Sometimes on this one too. I like that. Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I love that as well because, as I was saying earlier, I really loved the rocky, the rock, you know, Buzzcocks rock guitar version of 60. And there was one time I was in my house and I had to get up for something. Probably had to get up to go to the bathroom downstairs or something. And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning or something, you know. The sun was just coming up. And I kind of went to the piano possessed. I don't know why. And it just came out. Six City came out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a different key on the piano. But I wasn't even thinking about it. I don't know what happened. It just like, it was the middle of the night. The sun was just starting to come up. And I went to the piano and the Six Cities Sometimes came out like that on the piano. I never thought about doing a piano version. I never, you know, it didn't cross my mind any of it, really. But I remember playing it there and being possessed and thinking, wow, this is magical, you know. How's this happened, you know? Suddenly the song's taking on this different kind of beauty. And that's why I'm with it. And I thought, when we were doing this album, I thought, I've got to put that on. I've not really done a piano song, really, ever on an album, you know. And particularly, you know, I mean, I could have coloured that in with, I could have got the strings on it and done all that stuff. And that would have made it even nice, you know, the orchestra thing of, you know, you could have done. But I thought, what's nice, let's just have the piano and the voice, the vocals, and that was done first take. The guy that was producing it was Dave Allen. I went through the song once. I said, "How was that, Dave? Do you think I should do it again?" He said, "No, don't do it again. Come and have a listen." And I thought, yeah, it's not a sort of thing you want to be doing too many times. You know what I mean? Now, on that first take, it's just got the magic, just one of them things where it has to be done one, So that was like first take. I couldn't believe it, but it had the atmosphere, and
Yeah,
maybe it's got some imperfections in there, but that's its charm as well, Just
right.
me at the piano live, straight off the bat,
Wow.
And like you say, a lot of people, including myself, they think suddenly that song's got a lot of beauty compared to the guitar one,
Right.
The
You would have
guitar
never.
one's great in its own right. I never thought there'd be another side to that song.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Steve. Is hearing the original, you could never imagine a piano version of that song.
No, I never thought for 1 second. And I kind of liked it. Like we're saying, I like that song for what it was. Rocking away there. I liked it for that, and I never thought. And like I say, it was in the middle of the night. I went into the room where the piano is. I've got upstairs, and my hands went there, and that came out as the sun was starting to come up. It's a magical moment, and I didn't intend, It's so that's one of one of life's mysteries or whatever with music. Really, it's like, where the hell did that come from? Why were my hands drawn to the piano? And why did I suddenly start playing Six City in a different key, not the same as the key on the, and just start, my hands started playing it, and I started singing it like that. I was like,
yeah, I think
it was mind blowing for me, and a beautiful personal moment for me as well.
As a musician, I think when the inspiration comes, you just have to go with it. You just have to go with it.
Yeah. But it was, like I say, I never thought, you know what, I'm going to do a piano version of that song. Didn't even cross my mind. It was like, I was possessed by something, It was just like, I was on my way back to bed, you see. I was on my way back. I think I'd go up to get a glass of water from downstairs or something, or maybe go for a pee or something. Whenever I was like, I'm on my way back to bed. But just before I do, it was like I'd been possessed, went to the piano, it started playing, my aunt started playing it, and I started singing it like that, and the sun was coming up. And it was one of the magic moments where you think, this is a wonderful moment in music for yourself, and something wonderful about life with it as well, It was just like sometimes magic or whatever it is can happen, And that's what happened with that song. And I say, and then when people have heard it, gone, what a lovely song, and that, and I was, it's like, it's a beautiful song as well as the song we knew, And I never knew that was there, It's one of the amazing things, and I think it does work out wonderful on the piano. And I did some acoustic gigs a few years back, and I thought, I've got to do this as well, So people are coming to hear the songs acoustic and that. And I did some shows up and down. And then they was blown away when I got on the piano and started playing Six City,
Yeah.
And especially when it's, when they're a bit enthusiastic for a bit of acoustic songs and stuff. And it's like, bit busy and everything. Suddenly you've got to suddenly it all calms down and they listen to that song and then, they just didn't expect it, because they might not have heard the album at that point or a version of it. So it was like, what the fuck, wow.
Right. Right. Well,
that's that song Six City you play live with the guitar, it's got, I've just heard it on the piano. No, now people have got the record, they know, but at that point, Fuck.
at this point.
But
Yeah,
it is a spellbinding moment now. And like I say, it's first take on there,
right.
and I wanted it like that, like the straight one off. You cannot trying to recreate it, all the best
Right.
possibilities it was, even with the flaws or the,
Right.
no going back to repair or
It was-
anything or trying to, I
every-
can do it better kind of thing. It's like it
Yeah.
had to have its moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
who'd have thought,
Right. It had to
that
be
song is it. Just
it had to be
one amazing things about doing this, about doing music to me,
music itself.
that transition.
It had to be spontaneous, like you said. It just had, that's
Yeah.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of other tracks on there I want to mention. Holding On has a nice chorus on that track.
Yeah.
And then I Can't Promise Anything Today. I like the IC synthesizer in that one. It's got that cold, icy feeling to it. I like that.
Yeah. It's very ethereal kind of, that high. Gotta get me that song. It's I thought it's lovely. That's got a lot of atmosphere, like we were speaking earlier about Terminal. I think occasionally Terminal's got an evocative kind of atmosphere, and I think that I Can't Promise Anything Today has as well. Yeah, there's something about it that's otherworldly, or it's got its own atmosphere in that song. There's something, I don't know, it's trembling in your fingers or on your bones, and there's something about it, and so it's that's it is as a song, and then I put that keyboard thing on, and it was all live, and I didn't want it the same every time, but a little bit, but it kind of takes us somewhere else. And I remember like pressing some of the higher notes and hanging on there, thinking, "Wow, this is pretty amazing somehow." Very atmospheric.
Yes.
So I do love that song. Yeah. That's got its own thing, character, and I forgot about that. The actual
right.
It's like some high-pitched string thing, and I just played all that live as well,
Right.
Like now they do things on computers and move things around,
Right.
and all that. But with that, I'm writing the song live. You know what I mean?
They use the same kind of keyboard or synth on. You're familiar with Teardrop Explodes?
Right.
They have a song called Ouch Monkeys. And
Right.
It's the same sound. It's the same sound. Very.
Well, when it is, it's kind of one of your basic string sounds, really. Sort of on a keyboard. It was only a cheap keyboard, I think it is, but it's kind of one of them.
It is like a string.
It's like violins or cellos and that kind of thing. And when you get to the top, they all kind of have that high pitched thing, that. But so I can see it on that and a lot of other things. But it's kind of like that kind of sound soaring there in the air. It's something
soaring,
like otherworldly about, isn't it? And I remember playing it as I'm doing it, and I'm holding them notes down. You're kind of thinking, I hope these notes, because when you press some of these keyboards, particularly them 80s ones, you never know how long the note's going to last, depending on how hard you press it or how all that kind of stuff. And so I remember holding on and riding them strings and thinking, please sustain, hold on to it. But it does take the song into another world, which is, I really like that song there. Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit, if you're willing to, about Pete Shelley passing December 6th, 1998.
Right.
How did you first hear?
Well, we just got it was sometime in the beginning of December. We just finished up doing a tour, and on that tour, he came to my room twice. We'd sometimes have a drink on the balcony and stuff of the hotel, and he came to my room twice on the last week of that tour and said, I'm thinking of leaving and stuff. So I was kind of like, you're not leaving me, but what do you mean you're leaving? You know, we've got a lot of things to do. And so he said that once, and he came in again. He said, you know, I've got this house in Tallinn now, which was in Estonia to move to for some strange reason. But, you know, he said, I'm happy to retire now. You know, you carry on with it. And I thought twice he said that. And then, you know, it probably played the last gig the next day or something. And then we all went home. And it was coming up to Christmas. So I was getting ready to go to this kind of street in the centre where there was like a kind of Christmas party, you know. They give out the mull wine and all that kind of stuff. So I was getting ready to go there, and then the manager called me and he said, look, I've got to tell you about Pete. He's dead. And I was like, you know, well, that kind of floored me. I just couldn't believe it, you know. And so I was just in a state of shock for quite a few hours, really. I was like, you know, it was hard to, you know, it was unbelievable, really, because I thought I was with him the other day. We just finished the tour. It's, you know, you just couldn't see that coming at all, you know. I mean, it wasn't like it didn't seem like he was ill or anything, you know. It seemed a bit tired and exhausted from the tour or something, but I understand that. But it wasn't like he was prepared for some illness or something. So it became completely out of the blue, and it was coming up to Christmas, and, you know, it was just unbelievable, really. Hard to take, you know. I ended up going out after a couple of hours. I thought, I can't go anywhere. I've got to stay on my own. I didn't go to that party. But I went to the local pub, and I sat outside on my own, and there was a big Christmas party inside, and I had to sit outside on my own. And, you know, nobody knew me in that bar at that time. And I sat outside with a beer. I was like, just didn't know what to do, you know what I mean? How am I going to get my head around this kind of thing? So it's just a complete shock, you know. And then eventually you've got to learn to deal with it, you know. But I was, you know, all the memories come flooding back and everything else, particularly in that party, it was just like unbelievable. But when I was 17, I was in a car crash and I should have died. We careered off the road and hit a petrol. We went into a gas station, demolished the gas machine, you know, the petrol pump. And out of my eyes, I thought, fuck, that should have gone up in smoke. And the car door was open. I went out, and this friend of mine, a close mate, he was laying on the floor with his head split open, and he was dead, and I was 17. So I thought, I know the meaning of death now. Now I know the meaning of life, that you've got to live every moment, because that's how quick you can go. I was 17 years old, and this mate of mine was 20, and he just died in his car. So that learned me a lot about death. And then my father died a lot, about 15 years ago. And then, of course, Pete now. So I've kind of got used to the mechanics of death now, if you see what I mean. Know how to deal with it a little bit. It doesn't get any easier with it all, but you know, it's a big thing that we all have to deal with, you know. But you know, you can't. It's one of them things you can't do anything about. You can't bring anybody back. It's a fact of life, and we're all going to die. So I have to look at it like that now. But you know, I never thought after 43 years, me and Pete were together doing music, and also friends, that it would end up like this. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I have to compartmentalize that now, and I just think that I'm sure he'll be watching over us and doing, you know, and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Well, like he said before he passed, he said, "Carry on." He told you to carry on. So I wonder if there
that was kind of it.
If he had like a premonition or something. I don't.
Yeah. It's very strange that, these moments happen in people's lives, different things, like we said about the Six Cities song, and now with the Pete thing, twice over a period of a week, he said, I'm thinking of leaving, you carry on.
Right.
And I thought, what's he talking about? He's never said that before. And within days or a week of him saying that twice in 1 week, he died. So it kind of seems like, he was kind of passing the baton, or, some spooky thing about him saying that,
Yeah.
And on part of whatever it is, the spiritual world or whatever's going on, it's so very strange,
Yeah.
And then that's what's happening. You have to deal with it. And it's kind of, it's painful, everything else, But now it's 4 years down the line, I have to treat it like practical, And also we had to carry on then. It was kind of like, what do you do? You can't sit suspended for the rest of your life thinking about that, And if it had been the other way, if I'd have gone, I would have expected him to carry on or whatever, he wouldn't have been worried about me every day. And it's the same this way, You have to put things to the back of your mind sometimes in order to function yourself,
Right.
Otherwise, you could just crumble to pieces and then, through the trauma of it all,
Right.
So we're kind of through it all now. It's one of them things, wonderful memories. You can't believe it. You realize how fast life goes and how quick, And I realized that I thought I'll never play the guitar with him again. I'll be able to play the guitar with other people.
Mm-hmm.
But me and him had something special, And it was that realization that I'll never have that again, We'll never share that thing again.
Right.
And that was kind of, all these, when the memories come back and you start thinking about all these things, and it's things like that, we won't be able to play guitar together again, Once I'd got over, days into all this or weeks into it, it's like, we're not going to be rehearsing or playing any, all that kind of stuff starts coming back. And it's like, we had a special thing. That's not there, which you don't think about at the beginning. Your son, he's lost his life and all that. And it's like, fuck, we'll never be able to do what we've done all our lives together,
Yeah.
So there's all the things,
Yeah. Well, like you said, being together for so long, a band is like a family. So it was like losing a family member,
Oh, massive.
Yeah.
We probably spent more time together than our wives, girlfriends, families, and anything,
Right.
On the road together, in studios together, in bars together, all kinds of.
Right.
But probably more time with him than anybody, really. So it is like, and I have said I've lost a brother, We were kind of like brothers in a way, family, like you say, really. It was a lot more than just playing in a band with some guy, a musician. And so, but somehow you have to get over that then, at some point. That's what I've had to do. Happy memories are nice things. And things come back all the time, certain reminders and lovely things. And I'm at the stage now, I've got to the stage where you can kind of think of the nice moments in a warm way now, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not the traumatic way about it,
Right.
There's a kind of warmth there,
Yeah, it is true what they say when they say time heals.
Yeah.
It really, but
that's right. That's what it is. It's
Yeah,
all about time. It's about time, really, isn't it? It's about that, yeah. And then now it's, you've got to get over the trauma, the psychological things, and
right.
and just let it sit nice and all that,
Right.
And then, of course, you look around, we did that massive gig at the Royal Albert Hall here, that big prestigious place, which should have been a standard Buzzcocks show. I remember talking to them about it a couple of times. There were certain things they required at the, and I never thought it'd be a tribute gig, you know what I mean, to Pete.
Right.
You know, it was going to be a Buzzcocks gig.
Mhm.
And funny enough, they was asking for things like medical health certificates there to cover whatever it is, these things.
Mhm.
And he was kind of going, oh, I'm not bothered about that. I'm not bothered about playing the place if it's going to be all right, you know, all that kind of stuff. Little things that you. And then, lo and behold, I thought, I'm fronting all this with a lot of guests we had on to make it a celebration. I never thought it'd come to that, you know. I never, you know, I mean, he was alive when that was booked and he didn't make it there, you know. But anyway, we did that. And then after that, we had a couple of things still booked. And so it was like, well, let's go and do them then, because we'd signed contracts to do them. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, really. It's like, well, what we're going to do is sit about and then tear ourselves up even more, you know. So we went out and did the shows that were booked, you know. Amazingly, one of them was on a boat. It was like a rock and roll cruise, you know. And that was very cathartic and healing in some ways, because we got to know a lot of people on the boat. There's a lot of bands on the boat. It was like, and it was sunny and all that. And then we did like 2 shows on there, you know. And that kind of took us on to kind of like, well, it looks like we're doing Buzzcocks this way now, you know. Because the manager said to me, what do you want to do? Do you want to do Steve Diggle's solo band or the Buzzcocks? And I thought, whichever way, in some ways, I thought, well, I'll be still doing Buzzcocks songs and my solo stuff as well if it's Steve Diggle. And really, I was kind of, should I call it that? And then the other thing was, because we carried on doing these gigs, it was kind of like, well, looks like we're still going out as Buzzcocks. And then, but it was also that bit, it's like, well, don't matter what I call it right now, I need to get my head right and keep doing the music, you know what I mean? And keep your sanity in all the midst of this, you know, of losing Pete and that. So it's like, let's do them gigs. And it was kind of like, you know, we could all still do it, and we knew we missed Pete with it, but we knew we was on to something else, you know. And it's like, well, we're still here and we're alive. And that's what the manager said. We're in the land of the living. We've kind of got to carry on. And so that's what happened. And suddenly it's like, well, we're carrying on the Buzzcocks then, because then other shows came in.
Right.
Which took us right up to COVID. So also one of the things was I said, well, if we're going to carry on doing these things, if we're going to carry on with Buzzcocks, I want to make sure we have at least a new single out. And that's what we did. And we had that single, Got to Get Better, and the B-side, Destination Zero. And it just to give us relevance, because I want people to think we're not just playing the old hits. We're not just becoming that kind of band playing the old hits. We've got to keep moving, you know. As I'd always said to Pete anyway, right from the start of this band, and over the last few years, even the albums become a bit longer to make. We've got to keep making new albums. We could easily rely on the old stuff, but it's always good to do an album, gives you relevance and some lifeblood for doing it. So that's what we did. We did 11 shows with this single, and then COVID came, and then we're just getting out of COVID now. We've been touring the last year and a half or whatever it is since COVID. So that's what brought us back up to date, really.
Yeah. I just had a couple other questions.
Right.
Which is your favorite to play? The Gibson Les Paul or the Fender Stratocaster?
Well, I used to have the Les Pauls in the early days, and the Les Paul Juniors who played on all the early stuff. But excuse me, now I get tired. I did a gig last night. Now I play the Telecaster a lot because I just find them easy to put your arms around, and particularly if you're singing a lot.
Mhm.
I started playing the Telecaster back in the 80s more when when I had Flag of Convenience because I was singing. And I found a bit with the other guitars, you had to get your arms around them a bit more. I mean, I can still do it, but I found the Telecaster a bit easier when you're singing, you know. It seemed a bit lighter, a bit smaller. So, and you have got a great sound. So I've been using Telecasters a lot over the years now. But I have got a massive selection of guitars, you know. I've got the Les Pauls and the Les Paul double cutaway, that's on singles going steady. I've got that. I've got a few of those, which I was known for quite a while. And other ones are the Rickenbackers and all that. But mainly I've got a lot of Telecasters as well that I use on the road because they're kind of like workhorses as well, you know. So that's what I've been using for a lot. And I just find it when you're singing, they're a bit easier because they're small, easier to handle. So, you know, but every time I get a guitar, I think I have to write a new song on it for it to prove its worth. You know? It's some kind of superstition. And I used to kind of think like, fuck, what if I can't write a song on this guitar, you know? Have I tried up, or is it that the guitar's no good for me?
Right. Well, I have not that you probably have a lot of time, but do you have any interest outside of music?
Not really. I've been so busy doing all this, right. You know. I mean, my interest is probably part of what I do, which is walking around London a lot, you know, just observing people and just walking around being fascinated by buildings and people and just in general, you know, and all the structures of things. So that's what I do mainly, you know. And then I'll read some books here and that, but most of the time the shop's open on this at the moment because we just recorded that new album. Mm-hmm. We just got the new album out, Sonics in the Soul. So I spent a lot of time on that during the COVID writing that, you know. And that's getting well received, yeah.
Right. Is that where a lot of your inspiration comes from? Like you said, walking around London, you know, being out.
It's kind of like absorbing life, but mainly, it's kind of a relaxation, really. I mean, I've got a couple of songs like Six City, and there's a couple of others, like say, but perhaps aware of your environment or your town and where you're placed in it, or what you think you are as part of the community, you know. So there is that awareness of that, you know. That's what's called society, isn't it? You know, all that sort of stuff. But it's kind of for relaxation, really, for going out, walk out, and you know, being fascinated by stuff, you know. But it's mundane stuff, really, you know. But and also just to get out of the house, kind of thing. No, you've got to go somewhere with it all. But I don't kind of play. I mean, basically, I don't kind of play golf or anything else. I think the other advice is probably going to the local pubs, the bars, you know. There's kind of cocktails in there where guys meet and have a drink and all that stuff. So there's that side of it, yeah. Yeah. But
so what's on the immediate horizon for Steve Diggle? What's coming up?
We're touring. We're touring till April. The manager's going to. It's sorting out. We're hoping to sort American tour out for next year because we haven't been to the States. But the last couple of years we've been touring around Britain. Since COVID, you know, because it's taken time for all that, but now everybody's kind of getting back in the swing. So that's what it is. But I'm working on the second album now with, you know, this one, Sonics in the Soul's just come out. And it's been well received everywhere. And this is a great album, you know. I try to keep all the elements of the Buzzcocks albums a little bit so it's recognizable, but I've taken it somewhere else as well. And I've produced this album with another guy. First Buzzcocks album ever, produced by me and this other guy, Lawrence, who's brilliant. And it sounds great, this Sonics in the Soul album. I think it's really impressed a lot of people, you know,
Yeah.
because they were wondering what it's going to sound like and will it work, you know.
How
But
was it?
it's kind of blown people away.
Yeah.
But now, at the moment, I'm on to the next one, you know.
Mhm.
When I'd finished that, I had some songs left over or some songs I was working on, and then some other ones came. And I thought, I better stop for a bit. I better make sure we record the ones we've got well or mix well and all that. And so that's what I've been doing on that. But I'm kind of excited. We've been doing a lot of shows recently. So, but I'm just kind of getting back, placing the demo songs I had for this next album, and also coming up with lots of ideas for the next album, you know.
Mm.
Because we started to leave it about, we'd do a world tour and it'd be like 3 or 4 years before each Buzzcocks album came out. It started getting a long time. And that was partly because Pete didn't really want to write anymore, you know, in a way. He thought he'd done everything, you know. Whereas me, I just think I'm still starting. And I'm still kind of excited about like that kid we talked about when he first heard the Little Richard or something.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking this is what I signed up for, and I'll do that. I'll take it to the end till I fucking drop dead or whatever. You know? But
Well,
just because it feels like for all the fans, for myself, for the fans, and this is what I'm, you know, I was going to do, you know, this is what I've been lucky enough to do and managed to do it, and people kind of like it. And I'm thinking, you know, I should take it to the hilt with it, you know.
right. That's what I was going to say, Steve. Is as long as it's fun and you enjoy it, you know, keep doing it. Once it starts becoming a chore or a business, that's time to think
Oh,
about.
absolutely. Yeah, if it came to that, if I could smell that on me,
Right.
I'd be out of here. I mean, I was out jumping about last night on the stage. You know, I'm vibing with people out there, you know. It's not about me playing, it's about what they're doing out there. That's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in them and they know that. And so that's a wonderful thing to do. You know, it's not like I just go up there and put my head down and thought, fuck it, you know, I'll take the money and run, you know.
Right.
It's about this fucking experience thing, this magic that we create. And we do it night after night after night. I've still got the energy of about 20 indie kids. It ties me up. And it's something there. It's something like we're all on this quest. Like, I just want to take it to the hilt with it. And I'm really pleased with this new album. But now I'm thinking, I've got to find a better one, you know, or I'm excited to see what's coming next, you know.
Right.
Just like that kid that you was and I was, when it was like, I don't know if the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or anybody. Oh, I used to listen to all the Motown stuff as well. I loved all the soul records. I forgot to say that. I don't mention that enough in interviews, but I got all the Motown, all the Stax, all that. Grew up with all that.
Great.
But love all that as well. All that's in there with me. But what I'm saying, that kid that ran to the record store to buy the single, that's how I still feel like, you know. I'm making the next album for me. It's I'm excited. I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. The album I just made has blown me away personally, because obviously it's a bigger challenge without Pete being there. But we've overcome that and we've taken it somewhere else. And it sounds really good, amazing to me. And it's had great feedback. So that's one thing. And it's like, now we're on that, then we've got to go to the next level on it. What can we do on the next one? Which is kind of exciting, you know. It's not like, fucking hell, I've got to do another album because the record company wants it. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with fucking record companies. It's, you know, it's nothing to do with sales or anything. It's just like, I just want people to join us on the journey like they've always done. And like you do with other bands, it's like, can't wait for the next album thing, you know, which is a wonderful thing. You know, it's always a great thing to have. You know?
The purity of just music, of just performing music, composing music, playing music, and that connection you make with the audience. Yeah, that's what it's all about. I think that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's been my lifeblood. It's kept me. You get some artists that go off the rails or this, that, and the other, and all the rest of it. And maybe they forgot why they got into it at some point, you know.
Right, right.
But I know if I've ever strayed from that, if I've ever fallen off the road for a moment, I soon find my way back on it, you know.
Mhm.
And I'm, you know, at my age down the journey now, I could easily retire or just go, look, you know, I've done everything. You know, I've got a legacy there, as people tell me, you know, you're a legend and all that. And I'm thinking, I'm not even started yet. I feel like I've just started last week, you know. But it's a lovely thing to have, the love of it, you know. Because I've got to say over the years, they probably when I got to about 30, you kind of think like, you know what, this is it's a bit weird, demanding or something. You know, you go through tough patches, but it's part of growing up and finding out who you are as well as the music. So, you know, people start wondering what it's all about to themselves, including me. Like,
right.
You know, is any much point carrying on? And that was when I was about 30 years ago,
Yeah.
you know, things like that. But I've been so well over that for so long, where I'm back to like the beginning, where it's like, it's so exciting, you know, which it always was. Always was. On all them last Buzzcocks albums, and when we started out with the earlier, you know, everything, and all the fact of it. So I'm still excited as a writer and the performer. Live, I've always given 120% or whatever it is, you know. I've always been full on live. I've never put my head down and thought, I'm going to coast tonight here. I've never ever done that at any gig, you know. But I've been blessed with that spirit. It's something you've got to keep, you know, you've got to work to or keep to, you know what I mean? Which is giving it your all for what it is, you know.
Right. But you're just getting your second wind.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm a late developer. I mean, it's late in the day.
Right.
Real late in the day. And I've just kind of woken up thinking, I've only just started again. Which blows my mind. But like I say, I'm kind of thinking the next album's going to be to follow the one we've just done, this Sonics and the Soul album, to follow that is going to be really tough in some ways. So I'm thinking, I can play that album. I'm thinking, fuck, that sounds really good to me, you know. But I am excited to go, fuck, you know, where are we going next with it, you know? Because even I don't know, and I've got to write it. Which is so exciting, really. It's kind of, and, you know, I've got some ideas on the go, you know. But I do want to take it to places where it's like, fuck, that's somewhere else now as well. That's Buzzcocks, but it's Buzzcocks doing this now, you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not like I thought it'd be like, yeah, I knew the Buzzcocks album would be like that, you know what I mean?
Well,
it'd be like the last one or the one before.
Right.
I want that.
You're keeping it fresh and new.
Yeah.
Keeping it,
want to keep an element of surprise and excitement and some different ways of looking at it, you know.
Right. That's good.
So that's where I'm at now with it all, you know.
Right.
But
that's what gives you longevity. That longevity, yeah.
I mean, we're on tour all year now over here. So in between, I'll be doing that, you know. But I've been coming up with some interesting song titles and working on some bits. But I kind of try and piece the whole thing together before I start sometimes, you know. Get some ideas of what's going on, you know, notions, and rather than just sitting down writing a song, you know.
Right.
I have lots of song titles I write now, and some I lose sadly. But I have lots of bits of paper everywhere and stuff, pads and notepads and stuff. So all that's part of the fun of it, though, you know. It's like, well, you know, it could go this way, it could go that way, or it's this and that. And then somehow, some of these pieces of the jigsaw start to make some kind of sense, you know.
Uh-huh.
That's the magic of the art, you know. It's like a painting, you know. You start painting and then mixing some paint, which and suddenly some kind of picture evolves, and that's what it's kind of like with the music, you know. But this one, I didn't know where it was going to go, the one we just done, but then I had a kind of idea, and then that's kind of works. But the next one, it's got to go somewhere else beyond this one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was going to be a tough one to do, but now this one looks easier compared to the next one. Because I thought I've got to make a Buzzcocks album with this one. But now the next one, I've got to make a Buzzcocks album that's got another kind of few strings to its bow, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm excited with that. Yeah, I'm up for the challenge of it.
Right. I was going to say challenge. That was the word, challenge.
Yeah.
If there wasn't any kind of challenge at all, it wouldn't be really worth it. I don't think.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't, because I could easily follow up what I've done before, if you see what I mean. You know what I mean? I could go, I know how to write a Buzzcocks song. I'll just write one like one I've done before, you know what I mean? And that's when bands start to sound, it's the same bloody song after all the time, you know. Whereas with this album, Sonics in the Soul, every song sounds different, you know. You hear the first track, then the second track's different, then the third track. They all sound different, but it all sounds like Buzzcocks, and that's what I think I've achieved on this one. You don't know where the next song's going to go, you know, but it still sounds like the Buzzcocks on this one. So I call it, it's like a bridge album. It's like, here's where we're going now with me kind of in charge of the Buzzcocks thing. And, you know, this is the one that relates to all the past, but it's also going forward. So the next one, we'll try and take a little bit forward somewhere else, you know. And that's where we're getting in more challenging waters and more trickier things, maybe. But that's what's good about it. It's like, fuck, we ain't got anything to lose here, you know.
Right.
And we could find something, you know. We could find something that might be mind-blowing, you know.
Right. You know, you never know where that next inspiration is going to come from.
No, exactly.
Right. I want to thank you for, first of all, your time and for sharing so much, Steve. That means a lot. You know, when you talk about things that are personal to you, and you share your stories and the backgrounds on these songs, you know, that's a lot. That love to hear that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? Yeah. I mean, that's true. I like the background stories of the songs, and trouble is sometimes, you know, when I've done about 160 songs, I think. Because I was sorting out the lyric book, writing the lyrics out over the years. And I realized, you know, with Flag Convenience, Buzzcocks, and everything, there's about 160 songs. And some of the ideas behind the songs, I kind of really like, but some of them I kind of forget, or it takes a while to go back there when you've done that many, you know, to live in that song. But there was some good stories and insights in some of them songs, you know.
Oh yeah.
But over 40 years, you kind of tend to lose what you know, some of the greatest stuff about them. You know what I mean? And then sometime they come back. That's what that song was about, or the other bits of it. You know that what it's generally about. But sometimes I think. Because at the time of making the albums, I know every song in terms of, it's about this and that, or, you know, it is this. And over time, some of them little bits and pieces fall by the wayside, don't they? Yeah. Or they only come back now and again. But anyway, we've covered a lot of ground today, and it's all good stuff.
Yeah. And I'll email you. Like I said, I'll go back and watch it, and then the parts that were kind of sketchy, I still have the questions, you know, and you probably remember what you talked about. So maybe we, like you said, if you have time, it depends. We might be able to redo those.
And I've got a meeting with a guy's going to write a book on me. You know, I had one book out a long time ago, but a guy's going to do the full book. So. I'll be working on that with him. He's got to interview me a lot of times. That's it. But it'll be interesting in the book, really, as well. You know, eventually, probably be out next year or something like that, and take him a while. But so that's going ahead. Okay, well, it's lovely to see you. I'm going to have to run now, but it's been a great interview.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Steve.
Let's keep in touch and see.
All right, will do. Okay.
Right.
And you take care, and best wishes
Yeah.
always.
Okay. All the best then. I'll see you soon.